everybody. So I've seen a lot of questions recently about setting up communication between programming boards and screens, like how you can have things dynamically change on a screen based on input from a programming board. I've only done it once myself, not for anything important, so I'm not really super sure what I'm doing, but I have a general sense of it. I've got the code written down, so hopefully I can figure it out and show you guys sort of how this works, how the process goes. I'm going to include a few other tidbits of coding tricks that I do as I go. So basically I just set up this programming board and screen here. So just programming board hooked up to one of the new big super XXL, super expanded XXL, whatever. And here we're just going to do an on start. My general coding principle, I generally do almost everything in the on start that I can. Even if there's stuff that needs to run elsewhere, I still put it in the on start as a function and then just call it elsewhere where possible. I just find it easier for navigating in the screen when things are sort of in the same place. Another thing that I do that I strongly advise everyone to do is I have a file that I just keep open in Notepad++ all the time that has a whole bunch of just random tidbits of code that I use. So here, this is my unit start initializer. So this basically scrolls through all of my slots, everything this programming board is connected to, and you can just do a quick little check and then assignment to assign a slot to a variable name. So in this case, screen is the one that I want. I don't have any tables of things, so I don't need that. I don't have an emitter, don't need that. I like to leave core even if I'm not using it. I don't have a list of things because I just have the one screen, so I can just kill that. But if you had more than one screen, you could do that where you like insert them into a table and then you can iterate over it. Also, Control A, Shift Tab resets the indentation of everything. It's a handy dandy one I learned recently. And then the next important part that we're going to need is this is all of the code that's needed to communicate between a screen and a programming board. So basically, you just set an input here. Apparently I was doing mass for some reason. And basically the way programming board screen communication works is there is a like buffer variable that either side, or that one side can set and the other side can read. So there is an input variable that you set the screen input from the programming board, and then the screen can read it. And then there's an output variable that you set it from the screen, and then the programming board can read it. So here, this one sets the screen input, so the screen can now read the word input, and this one gets whatever the screen set. This one in the screen gets the input that was set, so it would just be the word input, and this one sets the output. Now, the important thing to recognize here is that it is like a shared variable state, so it doesn't change. So if I say this once, this set screen input input, if I just execute this in the on start, if I just ran this as it was, minus this of course because this means nothing, and then over in the screen, every frame I decided to check the input, it would say input every time. It doesn't like consume it, it's just a variable that has been set. So it will continue to be the same value over and over and over again on every single screen refresh until the programming board changes it to something else. So yeah, that is something to watch out for. Another thing to watch out for is that is how that's shared between users. I'm not actually super clear on that, to be honest. So if you have more than one user running a programming board and they're both setting the input on the screen, what input the screen is getting, I think you end up coming down to like race conditions because both of them are trying to set the flag to something different. So you as the viewer looking at the screen, even if you're the one running the programming board, I'm not actually sure which variable you would get between the two of them. So yeah, if you want to do something complicated like that, where you have more than one viewer of the screen who need to have independent sets of information, you're going to need something a little bit more tricksy. Okay, so basically this is the gist here. So I'm going to put this here. So we're going to pass something out, and then on the screen we're going to do this get input set output. So I'm just going to cut that out. I'm going to do a very basic example here. So what I'm actually going to do is over here on the screen, I'm actually going to just do quick text and just say test, test, 2, just so I can see what it looks like when it has more than one line. and then we're going to open it up. And this is not going to help me at all, is it? No, it's not. I'm going to need something better than this. Okie dokie. Sorry, I just realized the draw quick text. I don't think that this does like frames. So we might need something a little bit more complicated than that. So, hang on, I think I have some code for a screen here somewhere. I don't do a lot of screen code, oddly. For someone who literally wrote a basic 3D renderer in the Lua script code, the render script code, when it was still in beta, like when it was only on the PTS. I haven't really touched screens much since then, so I don't really know what I'm doing. But hang on. I made something somewhere. Nope, that's not going to help me. Screens. Here we are. Okay, so I'm just going to try this. I'm going to try to see if this works. I don't know if it will. And if it doesn't, honestly, I'm probably going to have to start this video over again and learn how to do this before I try again. So we're going to do current iteration equals 0. Well, hang on. Okay, we gotta do this init thing. So if init, how does this work? If not init, okay, hang on. Yes, that'll work. So if not init, then current iteration equals 0. Else current iteration equals current iteration plus 1. End. And then we're gonna do test. Colon, new line, dot dot, current iteration. This is basically just testing to see will it actually update over time, and the answer seems to be no. Cool. So I need to then, instead of doing it this way, I need to like create a layer, draw text. Okay, so I can't just do this whole quick text thing, so we're just going to kill that. We're going to kill this config. We've got a text, that's fine. rslib, I don't know what that is. Whatever, so local L is create layer, and then I'm sure I wrote text on here somewhere. Add text. Layer, font, crap. I need a font. Cool. So this is going to be the text, 32, ry minus 32. Sure, that's fine. Where's my resolution? So we're going to need to get our screen resolution in here. Setting it to true once the initialization happened. I missed that last time. Oh, actually, I missed the init equals true. That might have been my only problem. Hang on. Let's go back to this state. Current iteration. Okay. Init equals true. Aha! Okay, cool. This does work. Great. Okay, so basically here, I'm just saying if not init, set init to true, set current iteration to 0, otherwise iterate it, and then just print it out. So this is just showing me that it is, in fact, updating. So, good there. Now, we're going to go back and we're going to get this on the screen, how we get input and set output and whatever. So here, we're going to get input. So instead of this text being this thing, what I'm going to do actually is text is just get input. I'm just going to print it. Whatever I send, we're just going to print it. Nothing fancy. And then for the output, we are going to send back the current iteration. Mostly just so that I can put something on the programming board so that you can see the two-way communication, because I don't really have anything else to put in there. Generally, in that, what you would probably end up using this for is something like, in like an arcade game or something, like in Chained by Banyu Sabin, I think made that. I don't know, probably butchered that pronunciation. But anyways, when you're playing the game, all of the actual code is happening on the screen, and then you win the game, you get a high score, and then it actually has to put that high score into a databank to store for later use. And that step, you can't do that from the screen. You can't connect a screen directly to a databank. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to set an output in the screen that tells the programming board that it needs to do something in order to save that data in the databank. So you have the set output be like, new high score from user Corazarius is 650 million, whatever my high score is over at Spaceblaze. Yeah, so that's sort of what the set output's for. In this case, I don't really care about that, so we're not going to use that too extensively. So now the screen is on, but there's nothing on it because I'm not printing anything from that get input. So here, now, if I go and I just do this literally set screen input to input and nothing else, that should work. And all it's going to do is it's going to print the word input on the screen. Input. Done. Look at that. Handy dandy. Now, if I wanted to do something a little bit more relevant, one thing I was thinking about doing was transferring some data that's in like a table. Right now, for this example, I'm just going to use JSON.encode. It's not very fast. It's not very efficient. People have written serializers that can handle things a lot faster. I haven't used them personally, but I'm sure they're better because I know the JSON encode decode is terrible. But I'm going to do it anyways just because I can do it by just simply typing JSON.encode. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my player.getWorldHead position. So this basically just literally says, like, where is the camera that the player is currently viewing from, if they're in first-person mode. So if I wanted to do something cool, like set up a transparent screen that you could like look through and you could like map things onto the screen depending on where they are in the world. It only works for one player because they refuse to give me the camera location, position stuff on the screen. I asked for that a lot, but they said no, and I'm sad. But you could do it for one player. One player can start a board, look through a screen, and you could actually calculate out from their head position and the location of the screen and the location of objects in the real world. You can actually map it and make like kind of a mini HUD on the screen. And the cool part of that is it would work even in VR, because right now all the HUD code only works if you run a programming board directly. But you can't do that in VR for reasons that, to be honest, I still don't really understand. So you can never have a HUD, a proper HUD in VR. There's just no way to do it. Which is sad, honestly. Stuff like my damage report script would be really handy to be able to use that in VR. If you want to like VR over to someone and help them repair their ship, you could turn on the damage report script and use it yourself. But I digress. This would be a way that you could do something kind of like that. So maybe for like a ship showroom. So if you had a big showroom and you wanted to be able to like print information about ships and just literally like map it onto a screen, you could literally have like a viewing room with one of these big transparent screens on it, and someone could come in and hit a programming board and then look through the screen at the showroom floor. And if you knew where the locations of each of the ships were, then you could literally like populate information about that ship to like show up like on like a HUD over top of the ship where they're looking at it. Stuff like that. Again, if they just gave us this information in the screen, you wouldn't need the programming board to do it. It would be so much nicer, but we don't have that. So here, I'm just going to grab the player.getWorldHead position, which I'm pretty sure will work. It's probably going to be just like a table with an XYZ coordinate. I don't think there's any view information, and I don't think they're using those weird four-dimensional things anymore, the names of which I've forgotten. So it's probably just basic XYZ coordinates. So set the script output, we encode it here. Because I'm just printing it as text, I'm not going to actually decode it on the other side because I'm not trying to pull out the information into a table, at least not yet. I'm just printing as text, so we're just going to leave that. And then here, the getScriptOutput, if we wanted to read that, I could do something like, just like function, I don't know, read output, and in here you could just say while true, do, I think is the syntax, and then end. Let's see what the indentation does. Yeah, I think I liked it. Okay, so, and here we can just do system.print and just print out whatever the output is. And then here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually stick this in a coroutine. So over in my function, I also have all this coroutine information set up here. So we'll just yield after every frame here. We'll set this up to go. I don't want this going every single frame, so we're going to have it go just log once every second. And basically it will tell you how many, it will give you like an iterator of how many frames the screen has rendered between each update every second here. So we give it the function read output. So this is how you create a coroutine. Read output. Then we're going to set the timer core for coroutine. Not me. It's not a K. And then here we just go on timer core. And then here I have this block of code. Oh, no. That's not good. Not in there. In here, please. Which basically just checks the coroutine status. If it's dead, it just ends things. And if not, it will basically just resume the coroutine. So hit apply, deactivate the programming board, reactivate the programming board, and now that's way too big and I can't read that. Cool. Let's set this font size down to 30. Alright, that's readable. Is it updating? I don't feel like it's updating. Oh, because I'm not actually sending it again. I only sent it the once. Ha 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 ha. Okay, cool. That makes sense. Because I need to actually set the script input on every frame as well. Because I was only sending it when I activated the board and then never sent it again. So that checks out. Interesting thing to note though is that the screen still had the information even though I changed the code on the screen and then exited. It reran the code on the screen, but it still had that information in the buffer coming from the programming board because the programming board was still active and that was still the input it had set. So even though I changed the code on the screen, when it went to check the input, it was still there. Alright, it's still not, oh, I'm not running the programming board. Here we are, okay. So, there we are, look at that. That's where my head is. In world coordinates. And the cool thing is, I'm pretty confident that if I actually logged in on another character while this was here running, on that character, I would still actually see this information. It should still be getting that info, I think. I'm not super familiar with it, but I will have to check that at some point. Yeah, so if you need to communicate information real time from a programming board to a screen, this is the official best practice way of doing it. You can just set the render script for the whole screen and just dynamically write a whole new idea of what the screen is, but there's a few reasons why that's not great. One is it's a lot of server load. Because basically means every frame that you update, you're sending the whole information of the whole screen at once. And then the server has to then figure out that that's there and send it back to you again, literally every frame, which can be a lot of data transfer, can cause a lot of lag. I feel like it will cause inconsistencies between players and what each player is seeing. And the other reason is that you then lose the state on the screen. So there are some systems like ship info, I think it's called, where literally you can like navigate to different screens with different information on the screen itself, but it is actually getting real-time live updates from the programming board. But on the screen itself, as you're clicking things, you're navigating to different screens, and it now has that information. It knows that you're on a different screen because all that code exists on the screen itself. And so it can retain that state basically just from the screen, and then while still getting live updates from the programming board. Because if you weren't doing that, then you would have to have the programming board figure out what screen you're on, which means you'd have to code all of the interactivity into the programming board, which means that the screen would become inactive and uninteractable when the programming board's not running. Whereas this way, you can still move around and navigate on the screen even if the programming board's not running. It just stops getting live updates from the ship, basically. So yeah, that's a quick rundown on how you do communication between screens and whatever. I'll throw some code snippets in the description of the video so that you can steal them for yourself and try it out yourself if you want. All right. Hope that helps somebody and helps people figure out how you do this whole code programming board communication thing.